Kishay Hamahoy. Konton Lockett
Good
now.
day, One Nation Tribal Alliance, brothers and sisters, near and far. I am Greg, the administrator for One Nation Tribal Alliance, and today I have the honor and privilege of bringing our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Malcolm Bowekaty. So, look at the one and now Istapu Antipolo Yela no na Malcolm Bowie katilation no na don't know what you can hear back look at that one no te hulu kwakya don't know what you can the case is so Mr. Malcolm it's all yours.
Okay. Konton Lockett ne Hamahoy. Mahon Kitsen, she like it on Hona Ona Ieliten on Tonan Kwa Lihto, Ken Ho. Quilimak the Bain, she metapo, Melikema Bain, Isoto, Melikam Bain and Ho, she will Yalukin, she will Ihto, and I could on Eli Hetana, I could Eli Ia Hetana. Ho Malcolm Bowekaty ho maallashina aachi Clifton Bowekaty Kenny hatsi leshina kishu malasam Tita Leona Chavez Bowekaty ho mannoti anakoetta kaachalle ho maallashina usna ho kaaslam timla sakana pusna juhetuke hom tatchu dea konas temako hatap sunhan kuin shuan aatiake akiskon hona kaas janikeke. Ho tsawa kionan ho kapia skuke ke ake Albuquerque nan iskon UNM na skuke na makiskon ho koas leina koas jam aho an janikotin niehna nake igualtanen ho janan ho igualtanen ton ho jansuten ma ke siskon ho onan elet nake ton na koas ho da chiek awashuke na ho lagi tribal administrator ho January 2nd 2024 and ho igot shina kwe shuina kwe ikot tike ho Donna tribal administrator. Okay, so 3 years de chiho lila uche ho kapilukia arden guga di an administration ho 3 years de chawi ikoni akis kon donna ta kaso ihto ken kwaltan ikoni sana yakna pona honusa donna ko an da ihto ken one issue call teams la pen ni ha one call melike mehku pen I want to share with you a little bit about my experience. I came back to Zuni in January 2024, January 2nd, and I got the job as the tribal administrator. So ever since that time, I've been looking at the tribal organization, making sure that all the staff know what they're doing, making sure all the departments know which direction we need to go, and of course, working with the tribal council. And that means understanding what their priorities are, understanding how each one of them function, and understand the roles, and hopefully they understand the roles that they were elected to. But at the same time, I always trying to give them different perspectives because I was the governor back in 1999 to 2003. So I share a lot of that with them. But at the same time, I also have to be responsible for teaching a lot of the younger staff. At the same time, I'm doing a lot of things that I hope to continue if I'm fortunate to have your vote. And my governor partner, Pam Mahudi, if we were lucky to get your vote, we can continue some of these. So I'd like to just start off with a little bit about what my management style is and why I chose that and why I believe that that's been the most productive for me. I've worked with the Zuni tribe after I graduated from college. I've also worked with the school districts. And most of my career was spent in the Indian Health Service as a public health educator. I spent about 12 years before I had this crazy idea to run for the governorship position. And when I became the governor, I enjoyed 4 years of a good, productive team working environment. Got a lot of stuff done for the Zuni tribe. It's ironic that when I came back 25 years later, some of those projects didn't go anyplace. So I had to restart those. At the same time, I also left Zuni, went to work for a lot of different organizations, ran a for-profit business for about 7 years. I was recruited when it was ready to go bankrupt, and in a span of 2 years, we got that back up and running. So when I left, we had a $90 million contract, and we had already delivered $50 million worth of product to the United States Department of Defense, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Marines. I came back and worked for a nonprofit, being the grant writer. Then I got recruited by Pueblo Laguna, and I went to work there for close to 12 years. And then I decided to come back to Zuni because I wanted to make sure that I have some enough energy to try and make a difference for Zuni, especially our younger population. So my management style is leadership by inspiration. It's not about me. It's about the experiences that I have learned. It's about experiences that I've learned from very smart people, very productive people who were white, black, all kinds of races, and a lot of Native Americans. I work with a lot of different tribal leaders. And I saw how some tribal leaders brought their tribes from being poor to wealthy. And I've seen the opposite, where some people had a lot of money and tribal leaders didn't use it the right way. So their tribes are struggling like ours. And so it brought that leadership style here. The other one is I believe in respectability. I remember my parents telling me, if you have a problem with another person, sit across from the table, talk to them. You'll find at the end of the day, you guys will be laughing about that. So that's when I use the term civility. I think a lot of times we've forgotten what civility means. O nan alta shina civility lekap to chol ashu again to inquinan to ashu again to el hatiawan to you hetun tas to makala to ikos latinen akitu iya you hetun. Usually that takes care of a lot of the problems. So I look forward to being civil. I believe in civility. And one of my two of my leaders, Bob Lewis was one of my leaders in political arena, knowing how to respect people, how to listen, translate that into some form of action. The other one, especially when he talks about civility, is Morris K. Udall. He was a senator for Arizona, and he's the one that always emphasized civility, which we don't see in both sides of the houses this year. So with that, I also look at optimism. Anam kin hotse makatsumiken, hotse makaslanaken, Quash cold ma usnak akon sham awa quinan hon kawayen see bad things live in the past. Look forward every day. Usno ichtema optimism and hope. There's always going to be barriers, but we can always surmount the barriers. And I truly believe in that. I'm always looking forward. If issues come around, we'll figure it out. We get a group of people that know how to think. We get them, we listen to them, come up with some solution, and we implement that solution. We succeed for a little bit, and then we may fail, but let's also look at how we fail. The other one is really experiencing the background that I grew up with, knowing what our Zuni history is about, knowing the actions and the legacy that a lot of people have left for us, our grandparents, our parents, our brothers and sisters, our tribal members. We have a lot of smart people that we have to follow, and I really listen and look to them. So that means that we have to look at the traditional and customary styles, practices, and we have to turn around and honor them. We honor them by merging those issues with our newest contemporary world we live in. A lot of our political structure in the Zuni ways, especially here in the council, is no different than what we have in the white man's world when we talk about Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order was already thought about by our tribal people a long time ago. Itinaknan iyashuena. Amos ukwatonan si usi upe tikawe chosueteona penan kaikan. That's Robert's Rules of Order. We still practice that today. It's been very helpful. We adapt. And so when I talk about tradition and customary, there's a lot of experiences that we see out there. When we talk about the land, we've always been stewards. Our area has always lacked water, but we always grew up farming. And we need to revive that. We have a lot of water. We just had a flooding a couple of weeks ago. We dealt with those issues. But we also need to look forward and say, why did we have our community water system be stopped here on the Zuni Valley? And why did we have to go to Ojo Caliente? It's because the water table here has gone down. We had to look for another place back in 2000. We found Ojo, and that's where we have water systems now. But at the same time, we need to start looking how do we put holes in the ground in Zuni Valley and we recharge our aquifer for the next generation. If we do that, we find those locations where we can control the floodwaters, dam up the floodwaters. 20 years from now, 50 years from now, our people will have water. So we can look at replenishing that at the whole Caliente area. These are the type of things I really want to explain to you when I talk about customary and traditional. We learn from a lot of those experiences. The other one is that we have lost our self-reliance, our food sovereignty. I don't want to use sovereignty as just a cliche. I look at sovereignty as very meaningful. With that, we do not farm anymore. I remember growing up on the north side of the valley, Boston Wash, Wimayakwa, that whole valley from the east end to the west end, there used to be cornfields, wheat fields, melon fields, berries. That used to be our playground. That was our Walmart. We would go hike up there, walk around there. We didn't tell the landowners, but we would take some of their corn. We'd build a fire. That was our roasted ear corn. We visited some of those areas. We took the melons. but that was our area. We don't see that anymore. We can revive those. So that's what I mean by adaptation. People forget that there's an old photo of Ojo Caliente. There's 10 wagon trains, covered wagon trains, all in a row. Those wagon trains were full of corn, wheat, peaches, apples. That's how we were. Pescado, nutria, tecapo, ojo, Isconhotnama farming villages. That's how I want to relook at how we can adapt and grow. That's also one of the reasons why my most important thing, if we get lucky to be to be serving as the governor with Pam Mahudi and me as the Sipolo Shuani, Lieutenant Governor, want to look at settling the Zuni River Basin, the Salt Lake Protections Act. That will give us that impetus to once and for all settle all the water rights claims that our tribe deserves, and we deserve that, both paper water and wet water. When we get that from the headwaters of the Zuni Mountains to the land in Arizona, our Zuni heavens, we control the waterways if we can do that. It also means that we need to start doing what I'm proposing, recharge our aquifers so we can regrow our nutria farming fields, pescado farming fields, our Zuni Valley farming fields, Tecapo fields, and then Ojo Caliente. Let alone we start now need to think about Mazon and our Zuni ranches as some of those places we can revive those things. So that's what I mean by leadership by experience, civility, and looking forward. We got to combine all those different traits and look at the future. Make sure that what we're doing now will benefit 20 years, 25, 50 years from now, our generation of kids that who will exploit those areas and make sure that they can survive. I combine that with the lost opportunities that we have seen and fail in these few years that I've been back. We've had the privilege of going to visit the Arizona legislature as a Zuni tribe, as bona fide members of the Zuni land in Arizona, and also as citizens of Arizona, where we can actually get money to build those areas, the roadways, all the things that we need to get done so we don't have to be confined in New Mexico. People forget when we were back in office in 2000, we had to fight Navajo and half the tribes in Arizona to get our gaming device allocations. We're not a gaming facility tribe, but we lease all our machine device allocations to Gila River. And Gila River gives us a lot of money every quarter because they lease our machines from us. We may not have a casino, but we're making money off of that. And that means that we have to foster that relationship. So the more money they get, the more money we receive from those tribes. And a lot of times we don't spend the money wisely. And that's part of the issue. We also have a lost experience and lost opportunity by not expanding and utilizing what we originally negotiated between the Lewis and the Iracho administration on Fort Wingate. We split that land in half, lengthwise, where the western half was for the Zuni, eastern half was for Navajo. That took care of all the land from the interstate down to where it borders our Nutria reservation. Somewhere down the line, they split that line in half, east to west. Now we got the southern half. That's going to take a lot of redistricting, renovating to get something done. And we need to revisit that. Senator Lundstrom got some money to do some economic development. So they did an economic analysis. I don't know what the results are, but we got to revisit that because that's expanded opportunity we can utilize. If we can't grow business on the reservation here in Zuni, we sure as hell can build business along the I-40 corridor. So we can look at that. Those are things that we need to look at. So those are lost opportunities. We also have a lot of things because a lot of our kids know how to work with their hands. We have a lot of national parks nearby. Why do we have to go to Bear Sears when we can go after El Moro, El Malpais, all of those areas? Painted Desert, we can actually look for management contracts so we can have our people going there. So there's just a lot of lost opportunities. And a lot of times the Medica term is thinking out of the box. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think Pam is along the same line. We want to look at how do we attract business on the reservation. Our kids now have the opportunity not to go off the reservation, but learn and get college degrees, get education, higher education, simply signing up here at the Oshtwe Tribal College. That tribal college is part of the Navajo Technical University. That means that through that relationship, our students can go to any school in the United States that have an agreement, and they can learn remotely the same way we're talking here. My narrator is in Philadelphia. I'm here in Zuni, but yet we're like right beside each other. That's what we want to look at. So when I talk about looking forward and optimistic, that's what I'm talking about. So when I say my experience, what is my experience? I've been the tribal administrator since January 2nd of 2024. When I got here, I evaluated the organization. I knew where the problems were. We didn't stop there. I recruited directors, division directors. This is what I see. What do you guys see? We're in agreement. How can we solve it? It wasn't just me. I talked with those individuals. Let's try this, this, and this. We did that. We now have a fully functional operational system. There's still a lot to be learned, but that's where we rely on the Oshwe Tribal College. If they get certified and get credentialed, we're back to where we want to be at when UNM Gallup was here, but better. Right now, we're not at that point. So we have to get a lot of training with our staff. Those are still required. There's a lot of people that we're pushing out of their comfort zone. And by pushing them out of comfort zone, they learn a lot. They learn faster. They become better employees. It's just not one department, it's all the 5 divisions that we have. The Zuni Education Cultural Development Center, the Cultural Resource Division, the Public Works Division, the Public Safety Division, the Health and Human Service Division, Natural Resources, and Administrative Services. I don't have control over the courts. Now they're on their own, but they respond directly to the governing tribal council. If I become the lieutenant governor, we will definitely have control over that. We will exert the same type of requirements on that particular branch. My life has taught me that I am so very thankful that my life has taken a lot of different trials and tribulations. But for me, the hardest lesson is life is hard. And thank God it's hard. Hard things are hard, and we have to work harder. And that's what my parents taught me. That's what my elders taught me. When we grew up sheep herding, we learned the hard way. When you're out there, you have to survive on your own. Grandpa's there to make sure that supper's ready on the table, but during the daytime, you learn how to survive. You learn the sheep. You take care of them, they take care of you. So sometimes we need to revive that. There's only 2 sheep associations left. We're one of them. And we want to make sure we continue that. So I think I'm sharing a lot of my background with you. Now I want to really turn that around and say, what are we really looking at? When we talk about the water system, I want to talk about the water system on 2 levels. One, we already settled the Zuni Heavens area at the Little Colorado River adjudication. When I became the governor in 1999, from 1999 to 2003, we actively worked with the water rights team with the states of Arizona, the United States Department of Interior, Department of Justice, all the division and governors for the state of Arizona, as well as all the tribes in Arizona. We introduced that bill in 2000. It went through the ranks. It got stopped when the Iran-Iraq war started, when G.W. Bush became the president. And that's where you had Colin Powell talk about weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass discrepancies, this misdirection. They didn't have weapons of mass destruction. But when our bill got introduced to that side, it stalled right there because the only bill that passed during that year, ours was ready to go on both sides of the House and the Senate side. But because the only bill that passed was during that time was the bill that funded the Iran-Iraq war. It was later on, 2 years later, that the Arlen Kitaka administrator reintroduced everything that we have been fighting for. And that's when it passed. But I can claim rightfully that we settled the LCR. And now we have to look at that. And that gives us a lot of hard things we learned. Now we fast forward that. At the same time, when we're working at the LCR, we looked at the Zuni River Basin. And our former governor, Robert Lewis, had filed a litigation in the Gallup District Court. That was the wrong court to go. It took us a year to dismiss all those cases there. It took another year to convince the Bill Clinton administration, say we want to reintroduce that with the federal government's backing. We got Raymond Navajo to support us, so we've refiled that in the last week of the Bill Clinton administration, where the Zuni River Basin Act actually got filed. And it's taken this long to get that before Congress. We've had good attorneys that helped us all the way through, and we're ready to reintroduce that again. I went to Washington, D.C. with Governor Bowekaty in 2024 when we reintroduced that bill. But again, with the Trump administration change, a lot of those bills got stalled. They still stalled. I'd like to revive that if I have your permission and your vote to get into office. We can revive that. That'll be where we finally settle all the water rights issues. Related to that, we now have a community water system at Ojo Caliente. When that well was being drilled back in 1999, there was no arsenic recorded. But the minute we finished the second well, when we went deeper, that's when the arsenic levels came to below the maximum contamination level, the MCL. That's what EPA uses to standardize if arsenic levels are sufficient to cause health problems over a long period of time. When we started drilling and we got that online, that's when we knew that in some quarters, because of the water coming in from different directions, that the mean contaminant level exceeded that. But that was before 2012. In 2012, the EPA standards lowered their standard on mean contamination level. So since 2012, our water systems in Ojo Caliente have exceeded the maximum contamination level. That's why Zuni has been on the gun to create a system that will take out the arsenic. It's no different than the water well that the Zuni IHS utilizes in Black Rock. IHS has a private well over there that funds a lot of their water. It has the same issue. Arsenic in the Southwest is the decaying product of the radioactivity that's under the ground. So those things are all within the region. But for me, when I came back here, I looked at all the data. I work with Indian Health Service, especially Philip Rovetto, the Sanitation Division Services engineer. He and I looked at some of the data. We got a engineering company to look at pilot testing what is the best arsenic removal system out there in America. We looked at several different ways. One is called reverse osmosis, where we look at the water. We add oxygen and certain things to the water where it binds those radioactive arsenic levels of molecules into a binder, and we can capture that through filtration. We also looked at adding distillates or powder that binds the atoms, the arsenic atoms, puts it along with the salts. We have a lot of what we call totally dissolved solids. Those can bind. So we looked at that. We had them do the research. So they came back with saying, if we look at a combination of two things using nanofiltration membranes and reverse osmosis, we can probably capture 70% of the arsenic ions that are in the water system. And we treat that. Then when we pump that in the community water system, we'll have at least about 80 to 70% of radio-free arsenic levels, and we have softer water. So we converted that into an actual planning phase where we actually have an engineering company. They're ready to give us the 100% construction documents where they're saying they're going to use a combination of arsenic removal technology and reverse osmosis, where we capture 90% of all the arsenic molecules that are in the water. That means we have nothing to fear after that. And it is proven right now when we get that designs done, we're going to turn around and get a contractor to start building that treatment plant. It's a small treatment plant, the size of those metal containers that you see outside railway stations where they're small, they call them Connex boxes. It's going to be about that size. And we're going to place that. It's going to be manufactured off the reservation. It's going to be put on a semi truck and brought here. And between the water tank up by the White Rocks, Bowekaty again, on the east side, between the treatment plant building and the tank, that thing is going to go right there. All the water coming from Ojo Caliente will be filtered through that thing. And we're going to get on one end, it's going to go through the membrane process where it's going to try and capture as much of the arsenic molecules as possible, be rerouted back to the other side where we have reverse osmosis. And the reverse osmosis will capture the remaining stuff. The bad products that are going to be there are going to be siphoned off and pushed to the sewer systems that we have out west at Zuni. The other side that's coming in on the reverse osmosis side will also capture as much of the arsenic. And then when that's free, then we move it on the nanofiltration side. So both systems, two different systems, will give water that is going to be 90% free of arsenic. That's what we solve. That's what we're going to get. So the experiences that I bring to bear is a lot of project management experience. It's not because of me. We've trained our division directors, our public safety directors, our Zuni utility department to help work on this. And we've gotten the help of Indian Health Service. We've landed so far $5 million to get that into play. Recently, because we helped the utility department, the director's no longer there, we were ready to lose money that should have been done a long time ago. We captured that money. We did a lot of surveys. So this last go round at the Albuquerque area office, nationwide, there's CARES money that were left over and ARPA money left over. Albuquerque area got $50 million total allocation from tries that couldn't spend their money. It was rerouted to the Albuquerque area office. Zuni got $19 million of that because of the work and the testing we had done. So now we have just to look for a few $1 million to get that arsenic project constructed, put that thing over there, do the piping. So that's my experience sharing with you, Zuni people, that we've got the skills and abilities to solve a lot of these. And I really want to highlight that. The experience I bring to bear is not because I want to brag, it's because I want my directors and managers to learn that we can overcome a lot of these barriers. And there's nothing to be afraid of. We will have a new administration in a couple of years. Hopefully, it's going to be a friendly environment in Congress where we can bring back what we've lost. So those are just some of the things. The other side of that is the project manager I'm talking about is also what you saw with the work of Vanessa Laity on the Zuni Fair building. Because he left us in a good state, we've been able to complete that with all those people that work on the division directors level. My Zuni people, I want you to really clearly understand that. We train our people to learn those new things and learn and they implement that. And with the support we get, they get things done. You now have a brand new community fair building. That's no different than a lot of the water system, with the sewer lagoons at Black Rock. We call that the cat work. We hear a lot about that. That got resolved with money that was left over. We also cleaned the sewer line from that Black Rock Lagoon to where the Zuni Citizen Center is. That's where it ties into the main sewer lagoon system and it gets pumped out to the west side of Zuni. Those things were done. We also had to increase the amount of water going on the north side of the road. And that's why May and June of last year in 2025, right by Speedway, we had to dig underneath the highway and we rerouted the water line system from the north side to the south side so we could have the water coming in from Ojo Caliente feed into that. So the north side water and the tanks up by Green Acres, but just above Eustis Lake, that gets filled at the same time. Those are things that have been done in the past and we're expanding upon that. So those are products that you see. The latest example is when we talk about the flood. People are complaining about the incident command system, the emergency operations center. I beg to differ with those people who say that we were disorganized. We were absolutely not. The minute we activated that, everything worked according to plan. No different when COVID was implemented. All the tribes had the incident command system. All the tribes in the United States, including Zuni, never shut their offices down. That's how good we are. And in this case, it actually helped a lot. But it also meant that it highlighted certain different things. Two different administrations have never ever taken care of the Oak Wash Dam, the Trap Rock, and the Galveston Canyons. Those neglect allowed the water to come to the same height as the levees and overrun the levees. That was the sole reason why we had the flooding take place. The Old Gallup Road and Lizarly Road became the river channels for that overflowing water. That's why the Central Middle Village got flooded. It's that simple. But we actually had to, when that happened, we sent people out to identify where the water's coming out and what we had to do. Sandbagging was one of those things that we had to get off the track real fast. For the first 2 nights, July 16th and 17th, that's what they were concentrating on. We had to identify where the water's coming in. A week later, there was another big rainstorm on the north side of the community and the south side of the community. That second flood allowed the Galveston Canyon and High Mesa get the watersheds down, and they came into two different river systems, Galveston Canyon and Trap Rock. That's what allowed the water to come straight down the old road, Silk Road, into the Lasu subdivision, and that roadway became the channel for the river, and that's where we were flooding on both sides. That last episode that there was the Zuni Riverbed got flooded, all those things came to a head. It wasn't because of the incident command system that the flooding took place. It's Mother Nature. The rain priests were in retreat. We got the blessings. Yes, some families got inundated with that, but that's not because of the incident command system or the emergency operation. It's because nature overran us. But we didn't stop there. During those times, the first night we activated the EOC, all the necessary folks were contacted. Governor Gresham's office was contacted. We had the National Guard of the state of New Mexico, who is also the Secretary Cabinet for the Department of Homeland Security, came down to Zoom the next day. He's the one we met with. We introduced him to Tribal Council. He got on the phone at 11 o'clock. 1 o'clock, we already had commitments that there's going to be truckloads, semi-truckloads of sandbag being brought, which were filled by prisoners in the New Mexico State Penitentiary. 2 days later, we got those heavy equipment coming down because they moved all of those from Ruidoso, from Roswell to Zuni. If that's not coordination, I don't know what is. A week later, we sent a declaration signed by Governor Bowekaty to Region 6 FEMA. They accepted that. They assigned a tribal liaison. That liaison came all the way from Texas, was here that second week, brought 8 members of their team. So that second time that big flooding happened, we had 8 FEMA members working side by side, knowing what we're doing, and they started doing the damage assessments. And our own team were doing the damage assessments. So contrary to what tribal members are saying, we were organized and we still are organized. Because by doing that declaration, we then had the FEMA team help us fill out, complete a request for presidential declaration. That's sitting on the Region 6 FEMA director. All we're waiting for is to get the hazard mitigation plan done. That's what we worked on when the Brigadier General was here. We got that done in 4 hours. We had the council pass a resolution adopting that. FEMA Region 6 got that. They came back with 2 staff members last week, Thursday and Friday. They said, we need to beef this up. We got those done. We will have the Governor and Tribal Council sign off on that this coming Thursday. And when we send that there, hopefully that packet, that declaration, the request for presidential declaration of emergency disaster will get to the president's desk. Hopefully we can get a favorable award announcement. That means that we are now a presidentially declared disaster area. Federal monies will be coming down. We also request a joint preliminary damage assessment. We're doing that the past 3 weeks, and we submitted those. And right now, we can honestly claim that there's about $1.2 million worth of damage that the Zuni tribe has endured, and that we're going to get that reimbursed. And if we get that, we start looking at 1 to 2 years getting all the work done, rechannelizing those channels that overflooded, build up those levee systems, clean up the roadways and the gutter systems. At the same time, we have the United States Army Corps doing a brand new floodplain study so we can identify those areas and implement flood insurance. So moving forward, if this ever happens again, 50 years from now, it won't happen in our administration. We can have the ability to help our tribal members. That's how organized we are. So I really want to say that because it's not about me, it's about the people that work for you, the division directors, the secretaries. Our housekeeping were on the front lines. Our solid waste workers were on the front line helping people. Everybody, including the police department, were always out there in the middle of the night watching where those flood waters come in. Nobody had the day off. Nobody had the day off. I really want to emphasize that. So again, I just want to highlight the positive side. So we have a good team. We have the tribe that has working with a lot of their folks. The tribal council has come around and start supporting us. We are also looking at how to replace the money that we're utilizing. And that's the reason why we have been working hard on that presidential declaration. And we're confident we're going to get that. Acoma got theirs in 3 months' time. We hope to get ours in 1 month's time. And that leads to a whole year worth of work that can be done. So I really want to capitalize on those. I also want to now turn into the health side, the tribal self-governance. People misunderstand that tribal self-governance actually started back in 2000 when the Indian Health Service programs, especially the public health side, the recovery center side, the tribe went into a Title I contract, which means that we still are responsible to the area office, but the money comes down straight to the tribe. The tribe decides how they're going to use that. Since 2000, we've been running those programs. Compact tribal self-government means that we're eliminating the middleman. We're eliminating the Albuquerque area office. And that's possible only because we've had more than 3 years of a material-free audit. That audit is critical. If we didn't get those, we won't qualify for tribal self-governance. That means that when we get those audits, our people from the trenches, the secretaries, the clerks, the people that process the payroll, the vouchers, they're doing everything the right way. So at the end of the year, when those auditors come, they know if we receive $10 million and we spent $5 million, we will account for how much left is in the $5 million. Or if a program receives $1 million, we know we spent $1 million, and that's provable down to the penny. That's how good this tribe is. And because of that, we get to have the government understand that we're eliminating the area offices. Now our staff members that in the finance department and those secretaries that run the programs, they're the ATORs of the federal government. When Congress passes the budget, that money doesn't go to IHS headquarters, and then it filters down to the regions until we get it 9 months later. This tribal self-government means when Congress passes their budget, within a week's time, we get the $3 million that we're entitled to into our bank accounts, and we can invest those. The programs have those. Because we negotiated the tribal IHS self-governance compact in January of 2025, and we negotiate a 3-year funding agreement, we got 3 years worth of money up front. So we're investing that. And now our programs have to spend the money wisely. And yes, it's a lot of responsibility. But that also means the director has to train the staff, educate the staff, get the team going, cut out the inefficiency and ineffectiveness. And that hasn't been done. That's why people say we're not ready. We are ready. We have been ready for the past 22 years. And that's provable. The same thing on the BIA. We're doing the same thing. We just went through negotiations 2 days ago, and we just signed the annual funding agreement. It's now up to the Solicitor General, the attorney for the Department of Interior, to sign off on that compact, and we'll get everything. Those are the things I really want to highlight to people that we now are doing that. Under Indian Health Service, we didn't go after the clinic. We didn't go after the hospital. That's what people don't understand. We want Jean and her staff to maintain the hospital, and we want the tribal council to help them in the future by recruiting for those positions. We want Jean, we're not going to, as a tribe, we're not going to take over the medical portion because that is very expensive. And we want Jean to still run that so she can build on the east side of the hospital a 2-story medical wing where we do a lot more exams and a lot more doctors to cure our people. That's what we want. People forget that. We only contract that for the OEH side of the equation. The clinical and medical staff, we didn't go after because that's not what we wanted. Because of the reduction in force, because the hiring freeze, Indian Health Service and BI are not recruiting the people. And the salaries are so low that nobody wants to come to work for Zuni on both sides. And that's the same thing we see on our tribal side. Our salaries are low, so we're trying to get our HR to get their stuff together so we can do a wage and salary survey so we can be competitive in our wages. My Zuni people, I want you to know that this is what's going on. A lot of times people don't explain this to you. So sometimes the Zuni tribe, through the council, and the hospital administration at the hospital through Jean, have to own up that they own 50% of the problem apiece. We as worker bees on the tribal operations side and on the operating side of the hospital, we're doing the best to keep the services going so we get the money rolling in. That is how we run the operations. I know a lot of our young people ask about sovereignty. For me, sovereignty is 3 different definitions. I'll start from our customary traditional because that's what I believe in. Ho'na chimikanagap hon kuni akwe sana hon ukwe ketea. Iskon ho'na tsumme alakan awike ho'na ettowe. Usonagakon atsumme. That's our true sovereignty. We derive our power from whatever medicines that we brought up, whatever powerful things we brought back out after we came out of the Grand Canyon era into this current world. That's true sovereignty. We wandered the earth until we found the middle place. We exercised that sovereignty We created our clans at Hantipinke. We devised who Zuni was. That's true sovereignty. In the white man's way, there's three types of sovereignty: directo sovereignty, de jure sovereignty, and what we call directo. Those are the three sovereignty that we have. Directo sovereign means that by moral principle. Zuni has always had that directo sovereignty. We also had de jure sovereignty because we know where we originated from. We occupied the areas now from the Grand Canyon all around the Four Corners area. We cultivated, we have built homes in those areas. Rightfully, that's our original homeland. That's our sovereign right. That's where we derive our sovereignty. Under the de jure, we've always run our own businesses. When the Spanish came in and they took over us, that became de facto sovereignty because we had a foreign nation come in and say, we're going to build a church in your central plaza. We're going to assign your caciques. That's an external party giving us the sovereignty when we never have. An honorable facilitator, that's what you started out with when we talked about the ancestors. That's sovereignty. We derive our sovereignty way before the Spanish ever came into our area, way before the American Revolution started, way before the American Civil War started. We've always had that. And that's what I believe in. That's why, for me, traditional and customary is very critical. That's our sovereignty. We derive our power from that. Our religious leaders are the ones that translate through their parish or practicing that thing. They're not the sovereign authority. They're the facilitators of our right. Goes way, way back. And that's why we pray every day. That's why we wish for that. And that's why we get what we want. That is sovereignty for me. And I want that for my Zuni people. I want to go to Washington, exert that sovereignty, and say, you guys deserve to give us this way because our people deserve that. That's who I fight for. That's who I want to do. So I'll wind down here, Mr. Yawaki, if you want to ask me questions, but I think I covered a lot. But I want to have you ask me questions that I may not have answered. I know I rambled a lot, but three areas I talked about. So hopefully that was clear. Thank you.
Well, I one of my concerns is that, you know, how are we going to see the future for our younger generations? Because the elders used to tell me that, you know, when I was a young kid, we are teaching you this, our traditional ways,
Mhm.
and tikwa na tumunampe na way. Ko
Mhm.
iya na penate ame ta ko lukya kom mas penate ame lukya ino te pena ton tuman hon iktok na way. Ak anang queen ho stage to ho iya apa ho na wan ta chiston awi te hulang ukatop to ta chiston yam achawe let awa shua wale ko. You know, that tradition of passing down our oral tradition and oral history, how do we bring it back? Do we have people that understand that? I mean, when I was in the oral history with the Junior Museum Project, my two main oral historian was Mikalita White and there's a used to be an elderly man
Andrew
named
na picture.
Jose Atwashu.
Mm. Jimmy.
Not Jimmy. Jimmy was his son, but
Mm.
Jose was the old man. He was
Okay.
a old priest. He was a good one. But anyway, they used to tell me all these things when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
like I said, on chimtap tika yupopop aho aya na kwa lista ho na awan itok na bakyon ayu ya na wakiyamon acho awan itok na because there are future leaders. We're not going to be leaders all our life, or we're not going to be the parents all our life. We become grandparents, and then when we become grandparents, we're gonna be enjoying life. But
Mhm.
like you said, I like it when the way you said it. Life is rough, life is hard, but you got to work harder, and that's the way I see it too. So my question is, let's see how we can, push this new younger generation of the traditions that we know because we have lost a lot.
We have My partner Pam Mahut and I look at it three different ways. One, ho'nan tikia upawe, ho'nan deus ahoi. They meet together. Iashue nawe. Anam kin topin te penan ashnan luke yaton amalet itechnapse. Let dikop anam kin ake ho'nan deus ishilte te ona usna itzumetina. They're already doing that. One of them is no cell phones. When we had the practices, when the keeper practiced, no cell phone, that's a good start. We just got to continue that. So when that cell phone ban came into play, with the news na wopan, cell phone, so the people follow through. That's one method. The second one is we have over 30 years of Zuni language teachers that we need to support. Some of them are retiring. We got to train the new teachers that are in their 20s, 30s that are going to be teachers, certified teachers in the state of New Mexico. We got to force the school board and the school district to say that's going to be priority. We need to have classes for our teachers, allow them to exercise that, but also have a lot of different people help them write the curriculum, the lesson plans, not just the books, but the lesson plans. That is a central role for the Osprey Tribal College to take place. If they get the board and the staff to focus in and getting that certification done next year. If not, we're not going to get it done. If we go into office and we have to support governor candidate, Mahudi and I will do our best to make sure we give them that. If not, we need to change the people so we get people that can be aggressive and energetic and know enough to learn the system so they get that certification because we need that. Then on the council level, we need to meet with the State Department of Education and say, we need this money to help us get a language immersion program in the schools for those Zunis that want to learn in Zuni. And at the same time, for those students that need a lot more help, we can have them go the regular route. So those are three areas that we need to look at because we have control over that. We don't want to use a Rosetta Stone to do the English language. We don't want Curtis Cook, who has a following on Facebook. That's not the way we need to do that. That's our language. That's our sovereignty. We must control the rights to that. And by the tribal council exercising that in various fashion, we can do that. The fourth one that a lot of people don't know is that we have to have those elders and those people that still know their Zuni go to all these consultations, Section 106, NAGPRA, all that stuff. Zunis have to be there, say, this is Zuni. Nobody else can speak for us. And we have to get a team that can go there, argue against federal policy, argue against other tribal policy, where it says that Zunis exercise their sovereignty. This is Zuni area. These are Zuni ruins. We want to be the ones to take care of that. That's how we do that. We don't want our history wiped off the face of the earth like it was in the Indian Land Claims Commission. Those are things we need to do. So part of that is the tribal council has to rewrite the narrative to say that that was Zuni land way before any other cultural group came into power, into our area. And then we set the history right. We set the history correct. And then we forced the state of New Mexico to allow some of our books to be published under the state textbook list. So our textbooks, our own stories, get to be part of the curriculum. I think those are different strategies. And I'm sure if we get the young people involved, they'll get us to do a lot more. We have two individuals that were growing up the same time. We have a Sarah Costa-Leckie, who is in charge of the library program at UNM Library. She's one of those that can help us work that out. We have a lot of young teachers that are now teachers that are certifying others who need to teach that. We got to beef that up, strengthen that. That's Zunis taking control of their issues and growing that. I think that's one way to answer your question. And
Okay.
again, we have to talk with other tribal leaders. So I'll turn it back
Yeah.
to you.
Well, okay. My second follow up question on that is self sufficiency. Self sufficiency, because again, like we said,
Mhm,
we should be fields out there, out north, south, east, west, no matter what. Kako take up upper
mhm,
nutria, lower nutria, you know, heshatotzina tap arts in an tap list host no church matoy napkia, leana hakohanai.
mhm,
And I said, well, how do we get that back up? Because, Makakulo na nasa sinaape cause less natin.
Mm,
Ulo, niisak na kway.
mm.
We see all these wars going on. Ulo, nikati. We see all these earthquakes, all the volcanoes. Look at the tsunamis. Look at the hurricanes. They're damaging. Look at all the, not only flooding in Zuni, but look at all the central. Those
Mhm.
no story na ko. Nebraska, Kentucky, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, all those planting fields, they're flooding. You know, I mean, how do we get that self sufficiency? What's your plan in bringing that self sufficiency back?
I mentioned before the Zuni River Basin and Salt Lake Protections Act water rights settlement. That is a key. If we can get that introduced and passed, that means that the headwaters from the Zuni Mountains all the way into Arizona, we have a say so in the amount of water that goes in there and the amount of water that we can use underground. We have to replenish the water. At the same time, it will help us create dams, get rid of the siltation, but also start farming from all the way down to nutrient all the way down because we need to have that water linger on the soil, not just the sagebrush, not just all those invasive species. It has to settle, and that way the water goes into the ground. We need to do that by doing a lot of the farming. Nutria used to have a lot of wheat fields. We need to revive that. We need mechanical means to fill up the irrigation canal that are 8 feet high. That's possible nowadays. We also need to build some of the structures we have, the gabions, skakos di honan althashina, hotlesna aquensana yob, haota the tata with that awake wokepoina down several places. We call those check dams. Ake kapstaniap isnokan kawialak niskon soe iwokepo bake it builds up the siltation. That siltation is fertile soil. Why do we have those farming areas in the deltas? That's what I mean, deltas, histogonicity. So we can look at that. The other one is we need to start harvesting those waters. We need to create new dams or build dams that are much more structurally sound. We have 4 nutria villages. All of those are filled with silt. Why are we letting that happen? We need to make sure and enforce our natural resources. Start back where we were at when Bob Lewis settled that land damages in the Zuni Land Claims Act. We had a Zuni plant that looked at all of those. Right now, it's thrown to the wayside. I'm having the director revive that so we can get back to where we're at. We need to know what type of plants we have at the higher elevation, what type of trees we have, what are invasive species, are they healthy, not healthy? We need to look at that down to the plants. Why do we have a lot of deserted areas? Why do we have overgrazing in some areas? How can we have invasive species? What can we do to do that? We can reach out to all those what they call agricultural mechanical schools from the 40s. Las Cruces is an A&M college. El Paso is an A&M college. Oklahoma has a lot of those. We need to look at them and say, how can you guys come up here and help us revive the old farming traditions? We need to rebuild a whole new canal system on the north side where there used to be one. We need to think about redredging Black Rock Dam, but make it big enough and deep enough so it doesn't undermine the dam that we refurbished back on the safety of dams. So all those things are there. The hydrology, getting a series of holes in the ground where we can recharge the aquifer. That's no different in the city of Albuquerque. When you cross Paseo del Norte and Montano, to your left, if you're going east across the Rio Grande River, there's places where the city of Albuquerque did that along the Rio Grande. They siphon water from the waterway. They've diverted to the side. In there, there's like big lagoon fields, but they're gravel fields and there's hose underground. So they recharge the aquifer in that method. That will work for us. We can start building. And again, it depends on getting this Zuni River Basin passed. We'll get about $698 million attached to that can be looked at. How do we start tribal sovereignty? How do we look back at becoming an agrarian society, which we were a long, long time ago? That's why we fed the United States military at Fort Wingate when the cavalry came and planted their tents at our Shalako racing field. We need to get rid of that so we can depend on our own. The other side of that is when we get that Protections Act and the water, we're going to have about $80 million to help us build infrastructure. So altogether, that settlement would cost us about $700 million. That's a $500 million that will come about to Zuni. And that's what we do rely on because right now the tribe doesn't make enough money because we have no business. That's why I brought up the issue of the capital infrastructure. If we're going to get self sufficient, we got to develop business on the reservation. That means we got to increase the housing so people can come out from different places. If we want to recruit companies to relocate here, they got to have housing. That's what we got to resolve. We got to have a good road system. So, Royce's project under the roads, we got to rebuild our roads for our community. We got to build the roads that allow the flooding to be recurred back in and get it back in the Zuni River. Those are things we're working on. We have plans for that. We already are doing a lot of that. We also now need to think about building the sewer line, the water lines. The water lines already done with the arsenic. We'll be in gear for that. But at the same time, along both sides of the highway, Route 53 on the north side, south side, those water lines, the homes were placed in the 1940s, 50s, and they're so old that we got to re-clear that. So we have projects funding that has already been accumulated. We need to go after money. So starting from choo-choos, every mile we're going to replace the water line. When we do that, we go on the south side and north side, run new lines to those new homes. It's a 10-year project. That's already in place. So hopefully we can move faster than that. So when we build the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, the utilities, the roadway, and the housing, we can get business on the reservation. So we can get more money to do that. So we don't rely on the federal government. Right now, we're relying on the federal government. If we can get the $500 million, it sets a new paradigm. It also means that we got to look at the agrarian area. Think about it. If those farms are collapsing in middle America, it's the Southwest that's going to have to grow those corn and they're going to buy from us. Those are things that we have. We're thinking out of the box. But remember, I value looking at history, adapting those things, and moving it forward because that has helped our community through three different foreign invasions. And we drove all those invaders out. That's the honor and courage we have, and the resiliency and the intellect that we have. And I truly believe that. And that's what we're doing now. We're taking all those things and we're rebuilding the community a block at a time. Why hasn't that been done before? Because now we have the right combination. Not because of one individual, not because of one administration, because we lead by inspiration. We train our managers, the young people, give them the challenge, give them the training so their ideas feed into one big idea, and we have one project to move forward every year for the next 4 years. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sounds great. I mean, um, I know I would have loved to seen it way before now, but it's never too late. It's never too late to turn things around. And I always think for the younger generations because I got grandkids and now
Mhm.
I got great grandkids. So come on now.
Yeah.
We got great grandkids that are running around here and I said, wow, I mean, those are the people that we need to look forward to.
Yes.
Because our grandfather, grandparents and everything looked at us. And now we're looking at our grandkids. So everything is passed down. So that's see, kaya ko daw na ako ay na peko. Hostage, tanawi mo sikan na.
Mm.
Tikan na, kokod na, hostage jamme. But to ausun ay to bin ayo yan to na. Ho na one okana is ay awe kuye.
Mm.
Meaning that we are a matriarchal society.
Mhm.
We need to acknowledge those our ladies that are doing all the work. I mean, they do. I mean, the whole class no telia hap, the mako kawanan, the manito, you know, the makayu makunawale letiko. That is true. Some tikan na cause lati lekopta some ako katichi. You know, I know it's a lot of work. The oven bread, I mean, we used to buy it for 50 cents a loaf, but now it's $6, $7 a loaf.
Mhm.
but but that's okay. I mean, it's that good. I mean, kupla, I still like to get my sourdough and my coffee, and that's breakfast. I don't have to have bacon and eggs. I mean, that sourdough and coffee is good enough breakfast for me. You
I
know,
mean, Mr. Yawaki, that is the reason why I chose Pam because I want Pam to show the Zuni people a woman can be a governor and do a damn good job. That is why I support her. Doing everything we can to get in there so we will teach our Zunis. We will re emphasize to our Zuni women they're the leaders and they got one that can lead them and move them forward.
good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad because I'm not. You know, I'm not the one that judges people, but I see it from a distance. I mean, I coming back and forth to Zuni and everything like that. I left home 1976, and then I joined the military, and I never did. I come back for my commitments and all that,
Mhm.
but other than that, I just, and it's time for me to come back too, and I kept, so yes, no, I look
Mhm. Mhm.
from Key West to Maine to East Coast, all over to Texas. But now, but Zuni's always been my home. I mean, Koslati, Potechilik,
Mhm.
and Yum, because ito ang Techilik, Taptis Lekelek, Usi, Tim Takya, Puso na, Kwatse, Manage, Uso, Las Tikilin, Yachu Ya Alek, Taptis Leket,
Mhm.
Uso na Kwas, Tim to Kwato, ina men katum telikin tembo to so o wo to tem taini na e
Yeah.
klamata shape. So
Mhm.
all these things, we need to understand and see, like I say, oh now one si teniente tabu patsipulo kwa sa kesuala ka ako se chim kap kyawa ye nap kya
Mhm.
shamle to awon up to kyawa na ta che tom yang te ko na kep to yamaho awan pinnan telian kito shemanan akito abu bienan to awon pinnan telian which is
Mhm.
the longevity of life, and so things I'd like to see that back. I like what I kept, and again, you know, yes, you sound you're very positive. I like your plans, and if this is your platform, that sounds great. And trying to be neutral because there's a lot of them out there. Well, there's
Right.
another team out there, so I'm hoping that I could get them to come and tell the people, and
Mhm.
because I'm gonna post this not only on One Nation Tribal Alliance, but on political awareness and other things. So I thank you for your time,
I
Malcolm.
appreciate it.
And I know you're a busy man, but you did tell us a lot. So thank you. If you want to say a closing, have at it, and then we can go from there.
Ela ko hamaho I hogotam the mai hetinap ke but don kagi ho ko lady tikur sitianan ho yam sit asa shina and kakwan iskono ya kakwe kwate yam topa kokish kakwen kokshno but donate chipon itinak tan nieshu at do man office donate chipon open door kagi donate shina ko like itikur ship ma ton ho yanik ton ho ailima ton ho hour shu again up until the general primary, up until the general election, it's not on our show in Alun. So we'll send out invitations. Donate stekket don elite kunashna kolo yam tse maklana teo tunana akona an aho kwa unity kan usnon tse me kwa honusi topache ko lani kona me kan tiha mach don awa shop ta ko lo ton an achu heto Hon jam koksi aho aan tashana kuin tehja tunona ak ansamana ikwane illapan ak ansamana kawa kaukuksi koksi illa o ak kitseni si kwaaslon jam teusan haitos neliken aate usna te chona sema kuin elahka. Ton tehle koksi awan te watu.
Well, thank you. And One Nation Tribal Alliance, y'all have a wonderful evening. And don't take your cook shower and do my holy.
Tapa. Elahka.